My name is Thomas Hauser. I'm with SecondsOut.com and ESPN.com. This is an interesting fight. I think it'll go the difference, and it's going to be a fight where the judges could go either way, and my sense is that they're going to go for Bernard Hopkins.
David Anderson, boxing writer with the Daily Mirror. I think this is a fight, really. It's Joe's fight to lose. If Joe does what Joe can do, Joe should win. It might go to points, mightn't stop him, but really it's up to Joe. The problem being, if Joe gets sucked into a brawl with Hopkins, if he lets him come in close, if he lets him throw that right and follows up with his head, with his shoulder, we've seen that in the past, how Hopkins can really, spoil a fight and drag the opponent down, really, and then it gets down to the judges, and we've all heard about the concerns about, will the American judges favour the home guy? It's a golden boy fighter fighting in Vegas. They don't want him to lose, so it'll be tough for Joe in that sense. So say that it is imperative that Joe, he fights his fight. We saw it against Jeff Lacey. Stand off, box this guy. You've got superior hand speed. You can beat him, even though he's 43. He's been a great champion. He is so wily. He's so experienced. He is cunning as a fox, as he says. But really, Joe should win this fight, and it would be a fantastic achievement for him if he does. He's waited all this time to come to the States. It's a marvellous platform. It's Las Vegas. It's HBO. We're all here. Everyone's watching, and it'll be a fantastic way for Joe to sort of cement his legacy and show these Yanks once and for all, I am a class fighter.
Kevin Iole, IOLE, Yahoo Sports. I like Joe Calzaghe to win the fight. I think Joe has got faster hands, and he's a very versatile fighter. Bernard Hopkins is going to make it a difficult fight, but I think Calzaghe has enough weapons to make it his kind of fight. I say Calzaghe by decision.
My name's Ian Axon from frankwarren.tv. I think it's going to be a tough fight on Saturday for Joe Calzaghe when he makes his American debut in Las Vegas. I've been very impressed with Hopkins this week. I think he's been very, very professional. He's got a great team around him. But Joe, for me, he's 44-0. He's never been beaten. He's got a great work rate, and I think he might just nick the fight. But it wouldn't surprise me if it went to a split decision.
Duke McKenzie, former three-time world champion. I see the fight at the weekend being shrouded in controversy. I think, for me, I'm probably in the minority where I actually think that Hopkins wins the fight. He's what I would describe as a real old-school fighter. Could quite easily have shared the ring with like a Leonard Hagler, Duran, Hearns. I'm not saying he would have beaten those guys, but I think he wouldn't have disgraced himself against those sort of boys. I think Calzaghe's totally underestimated him. I feel that fighting at altitude, I think that plays a part in one of Calzaghe's greatest strengths, which is his stamina. He's going to be made to fight. He's going to fight at a much harder pace. He's going to tire without any question whatsoever. I've been jogging since I've been here pretty much every morning, and after about sort of 2 or 3 miles even, my legs start to go heavy, dead. My lungs are getting dry, and I just feel that Calzaghe's preparation wouldn't be called into question, but he's not used to fighting at altitude. I wonder how that will affect him. I think the referee plays a significant part, Joe Cortez, who says he's firm but he's fair. He's firm, and he's not going to allow Calzaghe to get into his kind of a rhythm, because Calzaghe throws so many unusual punches, let's say, and once the referee starts to pull him apart and pull him aside, he's going to come out of that rhythm. And as I said before, I think his stamina is going to be come into question, and I can see Hopkins getting a disputed decision, but a decision nonetheless.
I'm Dan Rayfield from ESPN.com. And I think this is a great fight for Joe Calzaghe. I've been a big fan of Joe's for a long time. I have all the respect in the world for Bernard Hopkins also. But, Joe, he's faster in my opinion. He's got a great chin. He's got good defense. I love the fact that he doesn't seem even one iota unnerved by all the psychological things that Bernard has been talking about, and not in his head at all. And I just think it's a good style matchup for Joe, and I see him winning the decision in a pretty good fight.
Hi, this is Brian Walno from the Daily Star. I think that Calzaghe wins on points, but I don't suspect it'll be a spectacular, great fight, and he'll have to grind it out because Hopkins will make life very difficult for him.
My name is Jerome Seville. My publication is Sports New York Style. My prediction for Saturday night's fight between Bernard Hopkins and Joe Calzaghe, well, it's hard to call, but this is how I see it. If we can see Bernard, the executioner Hopkins, the fighter who before he won the middleweight championship, who went out there and gave 100% all the time, he has a chance of beating Joe. If we see the old Bernard Hopkins who goes out and do just enough to win, I predict Joe will win the fight because Joe is much more active as a fighter. He's a very talented fighter. He can adjust to different styles, which we have seen in the past. So my overall prediction is I would have to give it to Joe Calzaghe if it goes the distance, only because he's going to be more active and he will possibly win the early rounds, and it'll be a close decision.
Pat Sheehan, boxing correspondent for The Sun. There's been a lot of rhetoric been said from both camps ever since this fight was announced 3 months ago. It's still going on this week. A lot of name calling, a lot of mind games. We fully expect Joe to win, but the bottom line is that no matter what Joe says, deep down he has a lot of respect for Bernard Hopkins. Okay, he's 43, but in Joe's own words, he might be 43, or he is 43, but he can fight. Hopkins can come in, he can fiddle around in the ring, he can nick a victory and make it look dirty, make it look ugly, and I think that's Joe's biggest fear, is that Hopkins will stand off him and not really get involved in a fight and then just try and pick Joe off. So Joe, as we know, is a classic counter puncher, but in this bout I think he's going to have to force the pace, but I fully see Joe winning.
Mark Staniforth, Press Association. I think Bernard Hopkins will undoubtedly make it the hardest fight of Joe Calzaghe's career. He'll try and drag him into a dark place, as he says, but I think Joe will be just too clever, too sharp, too fast, and will win quite clearly on points.
Hi, it's Ron Lewis of The Times in London. I think the victory should go to Joe. I think he might stop him in the late rounds. I think Joe will just be too fast for him. The only thing he has to be wary of is he doesn't lose his cool and end up walking into too much problems. But I honestly think Joe will win quite well.
Gareth Davis, boxing correspondent of the Daily Telegraph. I see this fight going 12 rounds. I think Bernard Hopkins is going to be the hardest fight in Joe Calzaghe's career, but I think Joe will win it on points, possibly on a split, controversial points decision.